So yesterday we stopped here and we got introduced into what Power BI is and how to get data into it. We did try getting data from an SQL server database, but what I didn't, show us is how to get some other types of data. But because we are now already in the Power Query, we can always get the rest of the data. So if you've got more, this was the data we got from yesterday. So if you've got more data to bring in, we can always look through, this ribbon, these buttons on the ribbon up here. And we're going to discuss each and every one of them, one after the other. So I'll start with file. And under file, we've got these: close and apply, close, save as, options and settings, just like you would have on that file in a Microsoft products. What does close and apply mean? It means that we want to close the Power Query editor and apply whatever change we have made here into the main Power BI. So if we, just try that now, we see that it's closing up and we can see that it's loading our data in. It's still refreshing, still loading. So I'm going to let it do its thing. Taking quite a while, but we have to be patient with it. Please mute as you come in. Okay, so that is all done now. What I did was, when we were in the Power Query, I closed and applied. And if I bring my cursor now onto Power BI icon, which is below here, we can see that that Power Query editor has been closed and the data we've got in there has been brought in. Those two tables have been brought in. That is how that works. Now, well, I'm going to take us back into it. And there's different ways to get back into the Power Query editor from this point. We can either use this transform data, click on transform data, and it takes us straight back in. That is one way to come back to this Power Query editor. Or I'm going to close and apply again and show us the second way of getting back here. Or you can click on any of your tables. You see these three dots here. If I click on there, it brings a few options for us, one of which is edit query. So if I click on edit query, it also takes us straight back in. So transform data does that. Edit query also will take us back in here. So we are back here now. Let's look at what the rest do. We've got apply. And what apply does is it applies the changes you make here. I'm not going to dwell too much on it, but I'll explain what it is. It would apply the changes made here, but it's not going to close this Power Query editor. So the Power Query editor would still be open as a second page, but you would be able to go back into Power BI and keep working. Close. What close does it close. Oh, I didn't mean to click on that. So close, closes up the Power Query editor. As we can see, that already happened. It will close this, but it won't bring any changes that so if we had made any change, it would not have reflected. It just closes it. And then we can save. You can decide to save whatever work you do in your Power Query as a file, just like you'll save any file. You can save as. You've got options and settings where you can look into different settings for your Power Query editor, just like you've got for the main Power BI as well. So it's always good to come here, you know, and explore how you want your Power Query to work. And you've got help where you've got different learning materials that can help you through navigating through all of these Power Query on your own. You've got some documentations, training videos, and you know, access to the community as well to ask questions and to read answers to certain questions. And that's what we have on that file, the close segment there. Then we go into home. Under home, we've got this new query section of home. Under new query, we have new source, we have recent sources, and we have enter data. Now, new source, maybe I want to bring in another data set from another source. I'll be using the new source. If I've got some Excel file that I want to bring in, which I've not shown us how to, I believe most of us know that already anyway. So if I think I've got something in my desktop that we can use for a bit of work if we've got time. So I'll bring that, and we can see, because I clicked on Excel, it brought us this option for Excel files, not text files or any other file, Excel file, because that's the option we chose. So I'm going to click on open, and that will get brought in. Again, it would always bring it in through the navigator panel. Whilst we wait for that to finish loading. When we used the SQL yesterday, I believe we did see this navigate. Yeah, we did see this navigator panel as well. So we can just click on, like we did yesterday, and have a look at what our table looked like. And I know we can already see there's a few problems in this data that need to be sorted. You know, if I click on here, I'm just clicking on that. I'm not going to bring this in. What I'm really after is the CDs, but I just want us to see what that looks like. And it's a similar data set. It's the same actually, just without the problems. So, but the one I want to bring in is this one, and I'm going to tick this box. Until I tick this box, this doesn't give me the option to OK it. So I'll OK that, and that's how to bring an Excel file in. They're still within the Power Query editor. So we've looked at SQL database. We've looked at Excel. We can also look at text. Text or CSV file is the same as Excel. Click on that, it takes you to where you've got your folder, so you can get the text file that you want to get. But one that I want us to look at is the web. Somebody did ask in our data class, how do we get data from the web, you know? And we just click on the web option there. And now it's asking us for the URL, okay? I've got something here where I want us to bring in some data on world population. So I'm going to copy the link to this, and we can you know, just paste it in here. So you get the URL of the website you're trying to get, paste it into this box here, and OK that. Let's see what happens. Again, we've got that navigator panel, and we've got quite a few tables. Sometimes it's good to look at the website itself just to be sure what it looks like before you bring it in, because not everything on the website is as structured as the way that you would want to bring it in. For example, maybe this may not really be useful to how you already work with data. You know, we've got one with HTML code. as well. So it's good to look through all these tables, and see which really appeal to what you really want to do. As for me, I am going with the table 9 option. Let's see what's in table 8. Okay, table 9, because it's a little more robust. I can see there's the number of countries here, country dependency, country or dependency. I can see their population in 2023, yearly change, and different information there, So let's just bring that in, and we see that light up. So we okay that, and we're back into our Power Query editor. So we've got something called the OData feed, which works like the web as well. Blank query. If I click on the blank query, and I'm not going to dwell too much on it, as you can see, it says blank query. It is blank. So if you've got, like most of the time, I create my date table using this blank query. I've got a Power BI date table code, which I just copy and paste into here to make my date table, which is another way of making your date table if you are not using DAX to make it, So this is just to get a query that is blank. As we can see, this is quite blank. And if you can manipulate here and, put in what you expect to be the output, and then just use that as your query. But like I said, we're not going to dwell into that too much. I just want us to know that that is doable, that is possible. So that's that about new sources. I want to get data from a new source that I've not used yet in this work that I'm doing, this report that I'm trying to make. And we've got more, like we have seen, even within the Power BI, we can bring in JSON, XML, PDF, quite a whole lot of them. So use as it applies to you. At the moment, I think what I've brought in, or the ones we've used so far, the ones I can use, that I have an access to use actually. But the rest not necessarily in this context. But what sometimes you may need to bring it from SharePoint or SharePoint folder, and we've got that here. If you've got folders within your SharePoint that you want to plug into Power BI, this would be your point of call so you just click on that, connect, and it will ask for the SharePoint URL as well, or that folder itself within the SharePoint. Of course, it will ask for your permission and ask you to sign in with your work account. And then if it would allow you, if you have, you should actually have access to that data set that you are trying to plug in. But that's that about new source. But if I'm trying to go back into any recent source that I've used, this recent source is the one. And as we can see, all the recent ones data sources I've used, they are listed here. The web that we just visited, the Excel workbook that I just brought in, a few more web services there. And I've also got my server, my database, the SQL that we did yesterday, and a few other ones I opened recently. So, but apart from bringing data from outside, you can also create a new query by entering it manually using this enter data. Okay, sometimes it might be necessary for you to create a table. As you can see, it says create table, for you to create a table within here. So you just need to, put your header in. Maybe that says place, whatever it is that it is. And then you can enter the next column header, double click, enter it. the information for each, as many or as much as possible that you need to enter there. And we can just give the table a name, maybe location. And we just okay that. And there we have it. A new table called location has been made. So bringing data from outside is not the only way to get a new query or a new data set in at all. And that moves us to data source settings. This would be applicable if you are trying to manipulate your data sources. Maybe you've moved some folders and you want to change, that setting around here. That this is where you would do it. One of the parts of Power Query where you can do that. I'm not going to touch manage parameters just yet. We'll do that later when we get into a bit more advanced stage. Refresh preview. If you want to refresh your queries, refresh preview would help you to refresh just the query that you have chosen. Refresh all would refresh everything within this Power Query editor. And so we've touched on data source settings, parameters. We're now in query, okay? So properties is just, maybe you want to write a bit of description of what your table is about, and you want to either enable it to load into the report or not. If you want to include it in a report refresh, this is where you get to, change that. And then we have manage, where you can either delete a query, because this query is picked and I've just clicked on delete there. It's asking me if am I sure I want to delete this? I don't want to delete that. I just wanted, to show us that that's how that works. Then we've got duplicates, which allows you to duplicate your table. And as you can see, it's giving the table a new name in a way. It's also still location, but it's putting 2 before it because it won't give the same name to 2 different tables, So duplicate is, as the name implies, you are duplicating a data set. But if we then go on to make a reference, so let me choose this one. Let me choose this for the duplicate option actually, so that we see the difference between the two and the similarities between the two. I'm going to duplicate this so we get that second table, okay? Before I move on to reference, look at the number of steps that we have in the applied steps. There's 3 steps up to changed type. And because we made this 2018 sales 2 from the first 2018 sales, it's got the same number of sets of steps as well. So they are basically the same thing, but they are not dependent on one another. They are the same, but they are actually 2 separate queries. They are treated as 2 separate queries, because if I decide to come to this first one now, let's say, and I say I'm removing this last column, okay? And now we have quantity as the last one. And we have removed columns as part of the steps here. Coming to here, I still got my price on this one. It's not removed from here, so that tells me that those 2 are not dependent. And that's how duplicates work. So if I'm making a duplicate copy of a query, I must remember that they are not going to relate. So these 2 will not talk to each other, basically, is what that means. But if I use the option of reference, which gives us, that last table, if I put this as reference, and I put this as duplicate, so that we know the difference. Okay, now for reference again, the number of steps we have here is now 4, isn't it? But for reference, it's just 1. And all it's telling us that this is seeing the first one as its source. even if we look in the formula bar, we can see equals 2018 sales. That is equals this table, okay? So what that means is that this table is referencing this table. So whatever happens to this table is automatically communicated to this table, and the results reflects here as well. For example, let's make an example here. So if I remove this quantity, okay, so that quantity is not removed from the duplicate because they are not communicating, but it straight away is removed from reference. So you have to consider how your tables are going to need to act. You know, does this need to keep communicating with this in the course of using this report? If it does, then reference is your point of call. But if it doesn't, then duplicate can be the way to go. Also, note something. If I try to delete this table, the first one, see, this warns me that I cannot delete this table because another query is referencing it. It's being referenced by another table. That is, there's a dependent on it, so we cannot delete it. Okay. But if I take this out, we can delete this because nothing is depending on it. It is the one depending on another. Okay, so I'll delete reference. Yes, I want to delete reference. Okay. And now, if I decide to delete this again, it's not going to tell me that I can't. Remember that we made a duplicate from it already. But because these two are not interdependent, I'm not being prevented. I'm not prevented from deleting if I need to delete. I hope we understand the difference between those two. And that difference is necessary to explain it so that going forward, we know what we are actually doing, you know, with it. And that takes me to manage columns section, where we have choose and remove columns, okay? Say I've got maybe like 100 number of columns here and I don't want to keep scrolling. My shortcut would be to come here and maybe go to, and I can tell it, okay, I want to go to. I mean, in this case, it's not really applicable that much because we don't have that many, but it will go straight to the table that I'm choosing and go to highlight it. If I want to choose columns, I can decide that, okay, rather than me deleting and removing columns the way I've been doing so far, I can decide to unselect all of them and choose the ones I want to keep, okay? So say I want to keep just that many, or just those ones, up to salesperson ID. If I okay that is what I get, okay? And it's common to add another step, remove other columns. And it's using this formula within the bar. I'm not going to talk about the M language that much within this class. We talked about it a little in data class. So it's saying table dot select column because we used choose column to get this. And it's telling us that from the last step, which is removed columns, it's keeping this number of columns. Let's not forget that we can always come into each step and, you know, manipulate and change things the way that we desire. If this is not what I want, say I want one more, I want this purchase date, I can always come back into that step to add it without adding any extra applied steps, you know, on there. And that is that about choose columns. Remove columns. So let's say that I want to remove columns. I think it's removed the column now. I didn't really see more. Okay, yeah, it did. So because this was highlighted, now in the case of remove columns, it doesn't give me the options of having what I can remove. like this one. So it's just going to look at what I've highlighted. So let's say I'm highlighting these two and I'm saying remove columns. It's just going to take those two out, you know, straight away using the function table.remove columns. Okay. And another option there is remove other columns. Remove other columns would keep the one that has been highlighted and remove the other ones. So if I do remove other columns, it's just going to remove every other column. So this is where you are thinking ahead of the future. You are thinking, what's the future of this report going to look like? Before you choose, you don't just choose, okay, I'm just going to choose column, or okay, I'm just going to remove column. You've got to be aware that if I'm saying remove other columns, what that means is that even when new data comes in and we've got like 100 more columns coming, when it gets to this stage, it's going to remove every other column and keep just this one. Now, if that is what you really desire for that step, it works. But if that's not what you desire, you have to, or what you need to do, you have to think. So it requires you thinking critically how your choice of, what you choose here, your choice of function to use matters as your data matures over time. Very, very important. It's not enough to just choose column or just remove columns, or you've got to look at the implication, of what you are doing. And that brings us to the reduce rows. So we've been dealing with columns. We can actually also remove rows, keep rows or remove rows. Let me work with this data set for this one. Okay. And I want to work with this data set because we've actually got some trouble here that we need to remove some of the rows. If I scroll to the side, we can see that everything on the first two rows is not really what we want it to be. But before I do that, I'm going to remove a few steps. It's done. So sometimes when you bring your data set in, Power Query Editor, Power BI itself will try to get some steps in place the way it thinks that it should be done. That's what the logic, whatever it's thinking, it just think, okay, let me put these steps in because that's the way I understand your data. But those steps may be wrong for your use. So there's nothing wrong in coming to remove those steps if they are not relevant to what you really want to achieve. Like in this case, those steps that is put in were not necessary, Then I'm studying this data set and I'm thinking, okay, the first three rows can actually go first because they are all just nulls, okay? So this is where keep rows and remove rows. This is where they come into play. So let's go to keep rows first. So say I want to keep top rows. These are the options. Keep top rows, keep bottom rows, keep range of rows, keep duplicates, keep errors, okay? So keep top rows. It will bring this box and it's asking how many number of rows from the top do we want to keep? Say I just want to keep four rows and delete the rest. This is what we have, It just keeps those and deletes the rest of the rows, no matter how many. I'll take that out. So let's say we want to keep bottom rows. Say specify how many rows to keep, number of rows to keep from the bottom. Maybe 5. Okay, and these are the rows on the bottom bits, the last 5 that it's keeping. For some reasons, you may need, to use it. I've not come across where I need to keep bottom rows. It's always been even the top rows I've not needed to keep. It's just to remove. Most of the time you are needing to remove, not to keep. But it's good to know that these options are there. Then keep range of rows. Maybe I want to keep the maybe first row 3, and then number of rows, maybe 5 rows after that. Let's see what, you know, so it keeps the 3rd row and it keeps 17, 18, 19, and you know the column headers as well. It keeps that for you. Again, only God knows why one would want to do that, but it is right there. Or you want to keep duplicates. Say whilst we are still here, I just want to keep duplicates. If I do that and keep duplicates, let's see how that works. So it takes out every other row column of that doesn't have duplicate and keep the ones that are duplicated, the whole row for them. It keeps them. Let's take those last 2 steps out. They were just for illustration purpose. And then we've got keep errors. So say there are errors and I want to keep them, but this hasn't got any errors. So I've basically just removed everything. If there were errors, you would have kept the errors. So this takes us to remove rows, which is exactly the one we're talking about. So remove rows. We need to remove the first 3 rows in our own case now. But just like the keep rows, I'm not going to dwell too much on all of this because of time so that we can do more things. Remove top rows, we'll see. We're going to use that, so we'll see. But remove bottom rows will work, the same way. Remove alternate rows, just like the word says, alternate rows. You will remove, maybe leave 1, remove 2, leave 3. So alternatingly like that, or however you specify. Remove duplicates, would always remove duplicates. Remove blank rows, you will remove blank rows. Remove errors, will remove errors. But remove top rows would always be your number 1 most frequently used of these keep and removes. So I'll put 3 there because we need to take out 3 rows from the top. So I'll take that out, and now we have those 3 null rows removed. So that's our data starting to look a little better. We still have a problem of these headers. So row 1, which should be the actual header, is on row 1, while we've got column 1, column 2, no name basically, because those are not really names that we can really work with. So, but we'll get there. I'm not going to jump there just yet. But we're almost where we are going to sort that out. And then we've got sort. Whilst we've got sort, you can sort your data ascending and descending. You can also sort them here, and I'm not going to dwell on sort because it's a function we have used in different tools already anyway. But there is one here, split column, which you are going to need to be able to use. Split column, we are very used to splitting columns by delimiter in Excel. That's where you say text to column in Excel. And it works the same way, really, or you may want to split by number of characters. Let's look at how delimiter works in here. So the best column to use for that would be column 6. Okay, so let's say I want to split by delimiter, and I want to split by that. It's even picked that there is a backslash, we'll call that now. Okay, so now I can decide to split at leftmost delimiter. Maybe the first one from the left is the only one I want to split. Okay, so if that's the one I pick, let's pick that and see what happens. I okay that, and that's what it has brought out for us. So we had v slash here, I believe, v column, the backslash, okay, and it's just brought that bit out. I hope I'm right because I see a few more here. Let me remove that step and see. Okay, I see it's added. That's what this machine does, or this tool. It's added an extra step that makes that look confusing. Okay, so let's start again. I only want it here. Split using special characters, split into columns. Okay, so I'll okay that. And instead of me to have split by delimiter, it's saying change type. I'll take that out, take change type out. And I believe it's not splitting only at the leftmost. I think it's also splitting, it splits to column 7 as well, which is quite confusing. I shouldn't be doing that. Or maybe it's me that's saying double.
I think column 7 is there before now.
It's there before, Abi. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I thought that should not be happening. Okay. All right,
I
thank
think
you,
the
sir.
only split you have is the 6.1.
Right, right. Okay, so that makes sense. So it splits just that first one because we chose that option. But if I go back in here and I decide to use the rightmost, that is issue split the one from the right, the first one from the right only. I don't want to split more than that. Then it does it. You know, that's exactly what it has split here. So the rest are within here, and then we've got that. Or you can decide to go back in there and decide that, okay, you should split it at each occurrence. That is everywhere you've got that backslash, just keep splitting. And we'll have as many. So we have this column 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, 0.5. There's quite, yeah, up to 6.5, you know, it keeps splitting them up. So again, it depends on what you are trying to achieve. That's what would determine or decide what you would, which of them that you would use. You can decide to split by number of characters. Where you have a uniform number of characters is where this is easy. Say, I want to, let's see how that works. I picked from here and I just want to split by, and it's asking me number of characters, maybe 2, you know. Is it from the once then as far left as possible, once as far right as possible, or repeatedly? Let's choose this and see how this works. And we can see that it splits MU, the first two, and then the SIC, the SIG there. It's split like that. Okay. Again, we are just going to see what happens if we split from the far right. And we can see, you know, it's done what it did before, coming from the right. And let's say that we are saying, okay, let's do it repeatedly. And it splits repeatedly. So the first two, the next two, and then the last, just one remaining because it's just the one remaining. So it's your call, whichever one you need. I'm going to delete that. There are other splits options, maybe by position, lowercase to uppercase, you know, uppercase to lowercase. Let's check that lowercase, uppercase to lowercase, because, okay, actually, why not? Okay, I don't think anything happened there. Let's try uppercase to lowercase. No. I was expecting it to split A away from LBUM, you know, for this one. Am I the one missing something? I think I'm missing something. Okay, let me pick this again. And I'm saying split uppercase to lowercase. Okay, now it's done it. Now, okay, I think I was on the wrong column before. So A is the uppercase and then the rest are the lowercase. So again, if that works for you, why not? So digits to non-digits, non-digits to digits. Okay, that would be where you have number and maybe alphabet or something. So it's worth playing around to see. But I think we get the gist. We've got a group by, you know, which will use, I'll say come to data class for us to see how that works. Okay, now I've still got this to sort out, and I really want us to see that. And we are already in transform, the transform section, where we have data. I didn't touch group by because we are going to dwell on it for a while. Data type. So we can see different types of data, and we've talked a lot about data type. You know, at the moment, all of the data types we have here is ABC 1, 2, 3. Meaning that it's not very sure whether they are text or they are numbers, you know. So it's leaving it to us to choose, you know. Where it's compulsory that it has to be number, then I need to really deal with it. And the reason why it's not seeing these as number is because the first row says size. So it's saying text, it's also saying numbers, you know. So if you don't want to change your data type in this corner here, where it's quite common for us to, you can always come here and change your number, and it's the same way, the same logic. Then we have the option to use first row as header, or use the header as first row. Now, use first row as header is what we need in this case, because our first row should actually be the header. The file name, the number, the maybe the open. I might have lose a data, an actual name here. File extension, attributes. These are all file names, you know. So let's go on to use first row as header, and it's going to promote that first row and make them to become header, you know. Where you have open here, it will be good to actually know exactly what this open stands for, so one can change that. Most of the other ones make sense, except for where I still have null. I think that was where I split. Yeah, it was where I split some of them before. So these were all part of the folder path. Yes. So, but if you've got a situation like that, that's how to solve that. You know, one can always name those column headers, give them the proper names, you know. Replace values. So let's say that I want to replace all the values here. Say I don't want all this column with the V. I just want V, you know. I'm used to, you know, doing all these things by right-clicking, you know, but it's actually here. Replace the value, and it's asking me what value should it find. And I'm saying find this value, this column. And replace it with nothing. I'm not going to put anything there. Replace it with nothing because I don't want it there. And it will take those out, you know. It's case sensitive, you know. So if you were trying to replace maybe capital A with a small a, it would be a good place to go and get that done. And that is all under that transform section. Whilst we are still here, you know how we use first row as header? We can also decide to use header as first row. So maybe you want to demote your header for some reason, I don't know why. One can go back to having the header as the first row. And we can see here it's saying demoted header. Table.demote header is the M language. Now the formula we have in this formula bar, the language is called M language, which we don't need to concern ourselves too much about, especially at this stage. But as time goes by, we'll be understanding how it works and how we can just do little manipulations to it. We won't have time to look at this last part, especially combine. And I would have loved to, you know, show us how to use merge queries and append queries, you know, because those are really nice to know. But this is where I'm going to draw the curtain for tonight.